Hey guys, it's Hunter, welcome back to another video. Man, I've got this giant pimple by my nose. It's super annoying, so I've named him Ray. If you watched my latest Agufish, you know why. Ray, say hi to the internet. Internet, say hi to Ray. Anyways, I make no secret about it, I'm huge into Epiphone. My first real guitar that I saved up my summer job money for was a 2006 G400 Custom, and I've been a fan ever since. I love the various takes on traditionally inspired designs. They're great bang for buck, and recently they've been on a roll with some kick-ass signature models. Some of my favorites so far have been Matt Hafey's 7-string Snowfall Les Paul with the white phenolic fingerboard, Lee Melia's Artisan series where they brought back the RD shape, Bjorn Galot's Jotun Les Paul with a freaking bottle opener on the back, and the latest addition to the family is Jared James Nichols' signature Old Glory Les Paul Custom. I got to play with the prototype a bit at this year's Winter NAMM, and I've been hyped ever since. Well, it's almost a year later. This has been one of my most highly anticipated releases of 2019, and the production models have finally reached store shelves. So, let's take a closer look. Alright, now Jared James Nichols is an incredible player. I said it before, in general, I'm not really into the blues, but Jared's passion for music and love for guitar is infectious. Like, if you're not following on Instagram, I highly recommend it. His videos and playing just inspire me to pick up the nearest guitar. We were actually trying to figure out a way for him to guest solo on the demo track, but unfortunately it didn't work out with his touring schedule. So everyone that's been asking, where's the Old Glory demo? When are you demoing the Jared James Nichols model? That's basically why this video took so long, and in the end, sorry you had to deal with my very average lead playing instead. That being said, this guitar is a metric load of fun, so let's get into it. So for his signature model, this is what Jared's come up with, the Old Glory Les Paul Custom. Now first off, I might be a bit biased because I'm 100% a Les Paul guy, but I think the thing looks stupid cool. It's as if a Les Paul Custom and a Les Paul Jr. loved each other very much. They shared a special hug, and this Old Glory was the result. It's a Les Paul Custom stripped down to its simplest, rawest form possible. So based off of Nichols' own heavily modded Gibson Les Paul Custom, we've got a mahogany body with a carved top, a set mahogany neck, and an ebony fingerboard. Unfortunately, no maple cap, which I always prefer having over not for the feel. but that's one factor that helps keep the price tag down. Double bound body, binding on the neck and headstock, chrome hardware, and an aged gloss finish on the entire guitar. I mean, honestly, aged gloss basically feels like satin. I mean, the Les Paul Custom, it's such a simple, timeless look, and Jared's decided not to mess with it too much. His name isn't plastered everywhere, it's not even on the truss rod cover. It does look kinda blank though, I might replace it with one that at least says Les Paul Custom. His signature is on the back of the headstock, which has been painted white. Very cool. I really like how the serial number has been stamped into the wood, kind of like a Gibson. Usually with Epiphone, they're just printed on there. Interestingly, the pearloid block inlays only go up to the 15th fret, which I'm not crazy about and I'll talk more about later. One defining feature is the Blues Power decorative plaque where the stop bar tailpiece would normally be on your standard Les Paul. Blues Power is Jared's trademark motto. Honestly though, as distinctive as it is, I kind of wish it came without it pre-installed. One of the first things I did was try taking it off to make it more of my guitar and less of Jared's, if that makes sense, but the screw holes underneath were super messy. Whatever, it's not a huge deal. Now, unfortunately, with this particular unit, there's a small number of little fit and finish oddities. The binding isn't perfectly flush with the body, neck, or headstock. It's slightly indented. Not by a lot, like less than a millimeter, but it's definitely noticeable and a little disappointing. The neck binding also has a ton of tool marks on it. Nothing game-breaking, the build quality is good, the guitar feels like an absolute workhorse, and overall, visually, it looks awesome. Just under close scrutiny, I mean, Epiphone's done better. I'm also not really sure what this indented line is on the back of the headstock, but okay. Now, developing the prototype for what would eventually become the Old Glory as it is today, Epiphone sent Jared some of the inspired by 1955 Les Paul Customs to mod and test on the road. He loved them, that's still one of my favorite models as well, and this Les Paul feels very similar, nearly identical vibes, though there are some key differences. Let's start first with the similarities. The matte satin finish feels awesome to the touch. To me, satin always feels higher end than the super thick polygloss that you often find import models entombed in. Then the neck, it's a big old baseball bat with a 1950s rounded C profile. Now, even though it's meaty, it's not uncomfortable. In fact, it's the opposite. There's something about these unapologetically thick necks. They feel solid and are awesome for hammering out power chordy riffage. And it's actually much quicker than you'd imagine due to the satin finish instead of a sticky gloss. I loved it on the 1955 Les Paul Custom, and I love it here. Thick body, thick neck, the build quality is great. It's just such a satisfyingly solid feeling guitar that comes in at about 8 pounds. The fretwork is solidly average, no major problems, and they're actually larger than the ones on the current year Gibsons. I find larger frets easier to play, so that's a plus in my book for Epiphone. I mean, overall the neck feels very, very similar to the one on my G400 that was my main guitar for years, so I'm a fan of that. One thing I'm totally not in love with though is what's going on here with the upper frets. So the block inlays stop at the 15th fret. It looks a bit strange at first, but that's fine. I've been playing a lot of guitars recently that don't have any inlays whatsoever, and in my experience most guitarists use the side markers to reference where they are on the fingerboard anyways. The thing is, the Old Glory doesn't have those either. When you watch Nichols play, it kind of makes sense. He's so good, he's got his eyes closed, he's not even looking at the fingerboard, but I am not Jared James Nichols, and I was getting completely lost on the upper frets. So the one mod that I've done so far involves the Sharpie. Alright, so the theme of this guitar is simplicity, and that's what the Old Glory sticks to when it comes to features and hardware. As such, the compensated wraparound bridge is another big difference between this and the 1955, which comes with a regular tune-o-matic and stop bar combo. Now, I wasn't too sure how this would work on this guitar. I mean, usually you only see the wraparounds on, like, juniors that have shallower neck angles. I was a bit worried that it would feel weird on a Les Paul Custom, but it really doesn't at all. It does look kinda awkward at first because it sticks up so far, but feel-wise, almost completely natural. Once I got into the groove of things, I barely noticed it. We've also got Grover Rotomatic tuners, which are trustworthy and reliable. Grover's always a solid choice. They're hefty, they don't slip. They're staple in modern Epiphones because you just can't go wrong with them. When this was first announced, I was a little disappointed that it didn't include a vintage style hard case like the inspired by 1955. I loved that pink interior plush. But it's okay because instead, the Old Glory includes the new Epi light case. From the outside, it looks like a soft gig bag, and there's a fair amount of soft padding on the outside to absorb impacts, but inside, it's actually surprisingly rigid. I still would have preferred the hard case because, come on, that pink plush, but for portability's sake, like taking it to a gig or practice, the Epi light case is lighter and provides adequate protection. I actually used it a lot recently while moving to carry my, at this point, borderline ridiculous number of single cut guitars, and I can confirm it works very, very well in both the transportation and protection departments. Inside the front pocket is an Allen wrench for truss rod adjustments, the Epiphone warranty card, and a certificate of authenticity hand-signed by Jared himself. For most recent signature models, Epiphone actually has the associated artist sign every single certificate, which, from the numbers that some of them sell at, is pretty intense. Keeping with the theme of simplicity, Jared's outfitted his Old Glory signature with just a single Seymour Duncan dog ear P90. The idea is, with so few options to get bogged down with, it's like starting with a completely blank canvas. Rather than fiddling with all these different controls, your mind is free to focus completely on musical creativity. Now, I figure not everyone looking at this model is going to be running it through a $2,000 Mesa or an all-tube Marshall. So to provide more relevant tone samples, Boss have been kind enough to sponsor this video, and they've sent me this Katana head, which is one of the most popular affordable amp series out right now because it sounds great, it's gotten great reviews. You can switch between 0.5, 50, up to 100 watts of solid state power. You've got 5 different amp voicings and a shitload of built-in Boss effects. It's actually pretty funny. The character on the front means katana in Japanese, but in Chinese it means knife, but like a small one. Like it could be a butter knife, which is much less badass. But I digress. Here's what the JJN sounds like through the Katana 100 head into my 2 Notes Torpedo Live, and I'm using the Glenn Fricker Engel Fredman IR. So it was really cool of Boss to sponsor this video. It's great to see companies that make awesome sounding but affordable products also supporting the online guitar community. I'm using the older Mark I, which already seems to work especially well with the P90. The improved Mark II has just been released, which means you can probably get the one I'm using at a really good deal. So yeah, link in the description to learn more, and while you're reading about why the Katana might be your next practice amp, feel free to give yourself an extra pat on the back knowing that you're directly helping me stay alive to make review videos. And speaking of the review, let's get back to it. So this pickup is actually custom just for the Old Glory Les Pauls. This is a Seymour Duncan vintage P90, which is usually only offered in soap bar form. Normally, the only P90 dog ear that Seymour Duncan makes are the Antiquities, based off of pickups from 59 ES330, which are lower output than the vintage. This one is the P90 sound we all know and love. It's raw, it's gritty, it's a little chaotic, and it's 100% rock and roll. And its only downside is also part of its charm, but with gain, the P90 can get incredibly noisy. Now, I haven't found that dog ear or soap bar really makes a tone difference. I'm sure someone will call me out in the comments for that, but it's cool that the dog ear version is exclusive just to this guitar. Obviously, with only one pickup, the control scheme isn't going to be overly complicated. No pickup selector, one volume, one tone. On my own Les Pauls, since I mostly only use the bridge pickup anyways, I usually wire the controls backwards. The bridge controls are where the neck controls normally are, and vice versa. So the Old Glory actually comes with the bridge volume in the right place for me, which is a nice random bonus. I also get questions about what kind of potentiometers Epiphone uses now. They used to use these Chinese-made mini pots that were not good. They were scratchy and wore out quickly. I'm not sure when they started doing this, but the Old Glory has large-sized Korean-made pots, which are much better. They feel high quality and turn very smoothly with decent resistance. Alright, so minor fit and finish issues aside, this is easily one of my favorite Epiphones and actually one of my favorite guitars overall that I've demoed on the channel. We're kind of living in a golden age for guitars right now, where for under $1,000 there are so many options for well-built instruments, but a lot of them lack personality. And personality is something that the Old Glory Les Paul Custom has in excess. The fact that Jared James Nichols actually uses an Epiphone Old Glory as his main guitar on tour instead of his Gibson Les Paul Custom speaks volumes. I mean, I think Epiphone have nailed it with this one. It's not just one of their standard models with Jared's name attached, it's something different. The Old Glory has the simplicity of a Les Paul Jr. combined with the stylings and feel of a Les Paul Custom, which I think is super sick. I'm kind of a traditionalist, so I wish it had a carved maple cap, but the fact that it's mahogany makes it even more like a Les Paul Jr. and Les Paul Custom form. I also wish that the inlays went all the way up the fingerboard and that it came with a pink plush hardshell case, but those are minor gripes. Most importantly, I love how it sounds with the Seymour Duncan. I love how it plays with that thick-ass neck, and I love how freeing the simplicity of the design is. As I was playing this, I was just impressed with the feel and the build quality. I actually forgot that it wasn't a $1,000 guitar. It's about time I added a P90 guitar to my stable. It's something that I feel like every guitarist should have in their collection, and for $699, I mean, it's a great option. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit the like button. These are, of course, just my thoughts. I'd love to know what you think, so comment down below. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. I've been told that they don't really work so well, so make sure you click all notifications. Thanks to Epiphone for sending this guitar for the review, and to Luke for mixing everything. Links to social media, Patreon, and the Discord server are in the description. As always, thanks so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I'll see you for the next video.